Hi, I'm Charlotte and this is Bookish Mama Blooms. We're here for our 2022 roundup. I didn't read a massive amount last year, but I did DNF a lot of things, so I feel like I only had to shrink the books that I'd read by quite a small amount to find the best books. I think I'm getting a little bit more discerning about what I bother continuing with. So I've got 10, nice even number. They're in no particular order, and I'm just going to dive right in. And also, I'm not going to give you the synopses for these books because I feel like you would already know them or you could look them up. So I'm mostly just going to talk about how they made me feel and maybe why I think you should read them. So the first up is Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. Nightbitch kind of made me feel feral. It pitted what modern motherhood suggests you can have, which is everything. You can carry on as normal and still do all of the best mothering things with the reality, which is that you can't. So this is very much an experience that fitted my experience, and it's not everybody's journey to parenthood. So when I say these things, it's not that I think everybody should do it this way, but as somebody who was pregnant, birthed and breastfed for quite a long time and also tried to work, I can say that it does kind of drive you mad, and the trying to do it is what drives you mad. You're set up to fail, basically. So I loved this because it kind of turned what was a feeling inside me that I recognised into something kind of magical, realism-y. The premise is that she's turning into a dog, and I kind of related to that. So I would definitely recommend this. Loads of people I know that have read it have loved it. I don't think I've come across a bad review yet, so that's a good sign. The next one is Females by Andrea Long-Chu. This book is bananas. It's very short and it will make you think all the way through, so just be prepared to have your thinking brain on. This is not an escapism kind of book. Andrea Long-Chu is a trans woman, and she talks about how she transitions very briefly at the start of the book. And then the most of the book is kind of focused around this found play, with a real play that was written by, is it Valerie Solanas? Yeah, Valerie Solanas shot Andy Warhol. Didn't kill him, but she's quite an explosive figure during her own lifetime and in this book. And the play that Andrea Long-Chu finds and talks about is bananas, but it kind of draws up all these questions about what it is to be a woman. I just think we need to ask those questions, and sometimes we need a fresh set of eyes to ask those questions. So you don't have to agree with everything in the book, but I just loved pretty much everything that it made me think about. We got a lot of non-fiction on this year's list. The next one is Ancestors, nice shiny cover, by Alice Roberts. This is the prehistory of Britain in 7 burials. And right off the bat, I loved what Alice Roberts did with this, because she takes a skeleton and she says, you know, you can't actually put your own perceptions of what it is to be a woman or a man onto a gendered skeleton. You know, just because the hips look a certain way, it doesn't mean that we can know anything about what it was to be a man or a woman at the time that skeleton died, or to that person that owns that skeleton. So right from the start, I was super excited to read stuff like that. And it's not just about gender, it's about all sorts of things, but she kind of puts in perspective how much we can really know about these people within the book, whilst also just revealing loads of really interesting facts. And the first set of skeletal remains, I think, is the Red Lady of Paviland. So that's just down the road from me. Although I don't think we actually have the skeleton here. I think we have a replica, which is sad. Here we go. This is number 4. Is it number 4? This is Absolute Joy by Roberto Pastore of Pastory Time. This is a little booklet, and I think you have to go to Bert to get it. But I would really recommend that you do if he's got any left, because this is a gorgeous little collection. Very sort of, it's a continuation on from Hey Bert, which is his first poetry collection, which is published by Parthian. I'm going to get that wrong now. I think it's Parthian, which was on one of my books of the year, I think in 2020 or 2019, I think it might have been. And this is just another escapism, another sort of fresh look at life. It's set in the pandemic, some of the poems anyway, and so it gave it that sense of immediacy. There's just some joyful little bits about Siân, which just, yeah, I love Siân, so obviously I'm going to love the poems about Siân. Yeah, and just reflecting on life and what we'll take with us. And yeah, just really, I think I've described the first collection as really joyful, so I feel very similarly about this one, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to review it, but it really has been, it's going to be something that I keep with me at all, you know, at all times. Here we go. Totally different type of book. This is Rachel Harrison's The Return. I have got a really weird feeling that I might have reviewed this last year, and read it last year, as in 2021. Don't know what to say about that, other than that it's going to be in this list as well. It definitely appears in my Instagram feed for 2022, so we're just going to go with that. This is about, I said I wasn't going to do synopses, but you might not know the one about this. This is about two friends, one of whom disappears without a trace, and then 2 years later she reappears, 2 years to the day. And this is, yes, it's a horror, and it's a really good horror. And have I read everything Rachel Harrison's written now? I think I have, and I've loved all of it. But this one has a special place in my heart just because of the way it explores female friendship. I really feel like Rachel Harrison has been in a best friend group where something went wrong. And I think we've all had that happen to us at one time or another, where we've lost somebody, and nobody really talks about friendships ending. We talk a lot about relationships ending, but maybe not friendships. And this, yeah, it got me in the heart. I would really recommend. I like my horror to have some, without sounding too snobby, I like it to have a little bit of something else, like some kind of exploration of something, you know, and this has that. This one is, I didn't stack this stack very well. This one is Regions of the Heart by David Rose and Ed Douglas. This is about Alison Hargreaves, the British climber. Now, I know this isn't going to appeal to a lot of you, but I have to put this in my top 10 because it was one of the books that is like, I think it will be a book that shaped me. Now, maybe not necessarily for the book itself, but just with the story of Alison Hargreaves, but because you can't access that story any other way, this is the vessel. I just find her a fascinating example of another woman trying to have it all, trying to be a mother, trying to have a career, trying to achieve something in life, you know. And also in the case of her, she has a toxic male element, which is her husband. And I think the authors clearly, they do a really good job of exploring it, even though it starts out as very much a climber's book with lots of technical terms, lots of things that I struggled to follow at first, and also very sort of, and then she did this, and then she did that. If you can get past that first, I'd say like 40 pages where it is a little bit dry, you suddenly start to see, and I think they start to get excited about the psychological side to what she's doing. And yeah, I really, really loved it. I did think the writing was really good in the end. As I say, started a little bit dry, but ended up being very, very compelling. And if you don't want to read this book, go online and Google her, because she is a really interesting person. I don't know how I'm going to fit all these on my lap. But here we go. There's the next one, is Bodywork, The Radical Power of Personal Narrative by Melissa Febos. This is a topic that is near and dear to me, which is the idea of flipping the camera to yourself. In her case, it's writing, so writing autobiographically, writing about herself, writing about her body. But in the case of the topic at large, I like to think of it as well in terms of things like Instagram and accounts like Busy Phillips, where she was one of the first sort of celebrities really to flip the camera around, document her life, her tears, her joys, her exercise, her music. And she did it unflinchingly, where she didn't always come off well, she didn't always look perfect. And she wasn't trying to sell you something other than that we're all a complete mess and that's okay. There's something very cringe to a lot of people about somebody flipping the camera around. You know, there's something a bit cringe about selfies, and I find myself constantly doubting what I do here, what I do on Instagram. I'm worried about the judgment that could follow from that. And Melissa Febos is exactly the same. She worries about the snobbery of the people that she was taught how to write by. That sentence doesn't make a lot of sense. Do you know what I mean? And her contemporaries, the snobbery of well, you can't write about yourself, you know, almost like it was too easy or it was too self-indulgent. So I just loved it. I marked loads and loads of passages. I'll definitely come back to it again. This is a late contender for the 2022 best of, purely because I actually started this book in 2020 and then I stopped for various reasons, and I picked it up again at the end of last year and finished it and loved it. So this is Josie George, A Still Life. This is a book written by a British woman who, she lives in a tiny little terrace flat, very dark industrial town. She's documenting things in her life because she's chronically ill and disabled. She is documenting her life and trying to see beauty in it. A still life, you know, she moves slowly. The prose is slow. She's looking at everything, puddles, light on the ceiling, cracks in the pavement, everything in the world. She's trying to sort of seek some sort of aesthetic pleasure from it, which I really, really loved. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was unique, and that as a chronically ill person, she described all the things she's gone through: disbelief from medical professionals, disbelief from family, gaslighting herself, trying to find love, you know, trying to find love as a disabled person. That was an amazing part of the book, and that starts about halfway through. So just the whole thing was really, really good, and I think it deserves to be read. I haven't seen it around a lot, apart from the initial sort of flurry. I haven't seen it around a lot, so I feel like this is one we need to get a hold of. This nearly won the book of the year for me. This is Louise Erdrich's The Sentence. This is a pandemic set book. It takes place during COVID, George Floyd and all the protests that followed. It's set in a bookshop. The manager of the bookshop is a woman called Louise. You know, she's a character in her own book. I don't know whether the staff are completely made up or whether they're the staff in her own bookshop, because she does have a bookshop. Yeah, it's got ghosts, queer characters, protests. It's got heavy issues about race, about identity. It's just got everything. Like, she can do nothing wrong for me. Everything she writes, she just seems to nail it. And she's been doing this for a long, long time. So, you know, now there is a tendency to, maybe you reflect on authors and you think, oh God, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they thought that that was an acceptable opinion to have. Haven't we changed? She's always had really cracking opinions. I mean, I haven't reread a lot of her older stuff, but I did study it for quite a long time. I just don't think she's ever had a bad take on anything. So that's just rare. And I really love her. So that, if you have got it on your shelves, I know a lot of you probably bought it when it came out, because it had a lot of buzz around it, but I'm here to tell you the buzz is real and you need to read it. And the final book, the #1 book of the year, I would never have picked this up if it wasn't for Siân and Bert of Pastory Time and the 90s book club. I didn't read it in the book club because I'm absolutely hopeless and I can't do anything if I'm meant to do it at that point in time. But I went back to it and read it, and it's incredible. The book is The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by, oh, I'm going to get this wrong now, Junauda, Petrus. This is a name I should have looked up, see, before I started, but I didn't look up. This is a book that concerns two young girls basically falling in love with each other. There's Audrey and Mabel. They come from different backgrounds. They have a connection through family friendships, and they're sort of thrown in together. They want to be friends, but then I think they start to realise that there's more to it than that. So it's an exploration of early queer love, which is really beautifully done. It's also about home, about what is home. It's about cultural conventions. And then it's also about life, because it's not a spoiler, so to speak, but I'm still not going to tell you what it is that sort of gives the story this twist. But essentially, a life-changing piece of news throws both girls and all of the people around them into a different situation. And whilst they're trying to access themselves, and it's all about things like heritage and sort of your cultural inheritance and your history, this bad thing, that's all I can really call it, puts a different spin on things, and they're trying to navigate that and also figure out who they are and figure out their relationship to one another. For me, it was a 5-star book right up until the end, and then it became off the charts. You know, it became a book that I'll probably always go back to and never be without, which is quite unusual. Like last year, my book of the year was a non-fiction book, and I probably won't read it again. It just had a huge impact on me. This is sometimes the difference between fiction and non-fiction, is that I'm gonna read it again. I'm gonna be affected by it again. Yeah, I loved it. And I can't say too much about the end. I don't want to say it's some big massive twist, because then you'll all be reading it expecting something incredible to happen. It's extremely subtle, but it's just the way it is done. Yeah, I don't know if there was any other option about how the end was going to happen, but I'm so glad this was the one that did. So that is my book of the year. That is the book of 2022. And now we're at 2023. So I have set some new goals. I'll probably do a different video for those, but I would be really interested to know if you've read any of those, if you have a book of the year that you want to share with me that you think I should read. Pop it in the comments below. And yeah, Happy New Year. Bye.